Well, everyone, I want to welcome you to my new podcast. I am Nylis. And name of the podcast is I Am Nylis, because I'm Nylis. So there's going to be several segments throughout this podcast. I will announce which segment we're going to go into. I have different things that I would like to talk about and discuss. Everything from about the life of Nylis, and also things about the gig economy, different aspects of that, society, some thoughts and ideas there, and culture. Little culture here and there will be. Also some segments on... we're going to not do too many on politics and religion. Although I am a religious person, I am not going to make this podcast about that. And I do not want to do too much in the politics arena. Politics are very violent right now. I will talk about my ideas on some of that in this podcast, and we will go there a little bit, but we will not delve in it too deeply. We will also talk about just life in general. There'll be some things that I will probably give some... I'm an old man. I'll have to give some sage advice. You know how that goes. I do drive in the gig economy for a couple different platforms, so sometimes there may be some thoughts in that direction, but we'll get started here. I think I'll go into the very first segment. I am Nylis. So here we go. So yes, why did I call this podcast I Am Nylis? And any questions throughout this podcast, if you have questions, you can send me an email at info@IamNylis.com. Nylis is spelled Nylis, for anybody that was curious. And yes, I will get back to you as quick as I can on email. So I have decided that to spread some of my thoughts and ideas out to the world, because I've heard a lot of things. I talk to a lot of people while I'm driving. I've given several thousand rides, and I've talked to many people. And there's a lot of things going on out there. There's a lot of people that have different views, and it's quite interesting when you're driving and listening to people. I've given my views before, but I'm very cautious not to step into those minefields. I also feel that when we talk about things and we're underway like that, it's best to judge a little bit the passenger, in the sense, I don't mean to judge them, but I mean to see the situation, if they're really sad, if they're really happy. If there's something going on, you can really tell. It's like I said, it's like a landmine, so you got to be careful what you say out there. And I feel that way in all aspects. I mean, if you're just standing in line, trying to purchase some items at your local grocery store, and you got someone behind you that's just talking away on a phone, and they're spilling their whole life story on that phone and how things are bad and this, that, and the other happening. Things like that make me wonder if that person is one of those people that is craving attention and just wants people to hear all that. Because I think most people like to try to keep personal stuff personal as much as possible, and maybe discuss it with an individual, or if they feel comfortable with that individual. But that's just one of my takes on that. I'm not too sure why people just run out there and start spouting all sorts of stuff about what's going on in their life over the phone so everybody can hear. But, yeah, so there's a lot of ideas and things I want to bring up in this. I'm going to try to take a look at different avenues that I've been down. Also on this segment about I am Nylis. So Nylis, I want to get to that too, because this is something everybody's going to go, well, what the heck is Nylis? Where did you get a name like that? And believe it or not, for most of my life, probably 30 to 40 years of my life, I thought it was a very unique name. Come to my surprise, when I got on the internet, and the internet started getting big, you find out that this world is very small. My grandmother, back in the 40s, had a son, and she heard the name, from what I gather from everybody and talking to her about it, she heard the name, and I think the name was Nylis, Niles. And she heard someone called Nylis, and she liked that, but she didn't quite like the way it was pronounced, and she didn't like how it was spelled. So she came up with her own spelling, Nylis, and pronounced it Nylis. Very unique for South Dakota. We're talking Avon, South Dakota here, out in the middle of the prairie. Nothing against Avon, Wagner area there. It's in a very, very nice and beautiful area. But it was kind of, back in the 40s, we're talking out in the middle of nowhere. So she thought that was a very unique thing, and it was for many, many, many years. The word Nylis, or my name Nylis, was very, very unique. I went by my middle name for a lot of my life. Well, let's get back to my name. Yes, so my name Nylis, I went by my middle name for a long time, and when I was in the military, of course, everybody, I always had to write my first name all the time, and even when I worked in government, still I have my first name all the time, and so some people know me by my first name, Nylis, and some people know me by my middle name, but as far as this podcast goes, we're going with my first name, Nylis. And I want to touch back to one thing, and that is, if you want to send in any comments or let me know some topics or things and directions we should be going, you can reach me at info@IamNylis.com. Nylis is Nylis. Okay, so back to my name. So, yeah, I went by my middle name, and now I'm kind of mostly going by my first name in, like, the gig economy. Any of the gig stuff I do, it's all first name. Kind of keeps things a little bit separate, but yeah, my grandmother, so I'm going to touch back to my grandmother. She spelled it the way she did and pronounced it the way she did, and she thought it was unique. And yes, my dad thought it was unique all of his life pretty much until towards the end, and I explained to him, Dad, we do not have a unique name. I found first names of Nylis. I found last names of Nylis. There's a metal band that's in some metal hall of fame in England, believe it or not, called Nylis. If you look it up, Nylis is some kind of metal band over there. I think they broke up though here just a little bit ago. So you'll find Nylis all over the place. One interesting tidbit I found is someone, if anybody's into D&D, I used to be when I was a young kid and early on in my military career. But there's a wiki.com, and they have a listing out there, and it's supposedly the creator god of the elves called Nylis. I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? I didn't even know such a thing existed, but I think it's something that someone just created for their D&D campaign, and I just think it's funny. I have a daughter that plays D&D once in a while, and I always tell her about the old times, and I saw that, and I had to send it to her, and she's like, WTF. You know how they are. You got to send everything in short message form. And so, she thought that was pretty funny. So I think that's pretty much it about the name and kind of how I came up with the name of this podcast. So I'm going to be moving on to the next segment, and we'll continue after this.
While every shelter pet is unique, some love a good game of fetch. Others would rather snuggle together on the couch. However, there is one thing that they all have in common. They're all pure love. Right now, millions of pets in shelters and rescues across the country are waiting to be adopted. My family adopted 3 dogs, 2 cats, and we just love them all, and we love to give them a special place, and they're special in our hearts. So if you're thinking about getting a pet this holiday season, make sure to visit the shelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, Maddie's Fund, and the Humane Society of America.
All right, welcome to the next segment. I'm calling this segment the gig economy, because we will be talking about different types of gig economy type activities, and I'm not going to try to call anything out directly, but unfortunately, in order to talk about the specifics, whether it's delivering people or food, I will have to talk a little bit about the specific avenue, or the specific one that I am trying to convey my thoughts on. I'm going to start out with a food delivery one. I've experimented with a few, and I found that one of them in particular, my daughter, we talked about this earlier about the D&D stuff. So I know a lot of other drivers that are driving DoorDash and some of the others, and so I figured I'd get out there and try it out. And one of the things that I noticed right from the start, it was pretty similar to my old pizza delivery days, almost. The first few runs I made, I just had to run in and tell them the order and pay for it using the red card, and after that I got the order when it was ready. Sometimes you have to wait, sometimes it's ready right away, and I grab that order and take off and do my thing and get it over to the customer, and I had some pretty, I would say, good experiences those first couple, and but there was some doubt on exactly how the pay. It was hard to see in there exactly how much I was going to earn or was earning, and I just had a lot of things happen, and so I was a little bit concerned on how that all worked. So I took a break and after that first day and started listening and reading up and seeing how things were going. And so I decided, since my daughter and her boyfriend, he also signed up and was going to try it out. He hadn't really done too much. He'd done like one or two runs, and that was it. I decided to test the whole process to see from both sides, to see how it worked. So with him sitting in my living room, I went out there onto DoorDash and I ordered some food from a local establishment, and then he had his app on, and so he was dashing, and in our little town, we're all kind of a suburb from Sioux Falls and Brandon there, and so there's not a lot of requests. There's not a lot of going on, so I figured he would have a chance to get that request, and he did. So I also had put a tip on there, and he got a notification that there would be a guarantee of X number of dollars, and it was probably $6 and something would be the guarantee. So he took off from our house. He accepted the dash. He took off and went down and got the food. There was a little issue with the food. They didn't make exactly right what I had ordered, and he had verified, and so he had to wait a little extra, and he texted me through the app so that we communicated like a customer would, driver would to a customer. And then he brought the food, and we compared notes afterwards, and then he ended his dash right away. So we were looking at the money, and it seems that at the time we weren't sure how that all works. So we saw that the $6 and something that he was promised, he got. And the $5 tip I gave him was basically he got my tip, and DoorDash paid him 99 cents or a few other plus whatever. There was just $1 maybe that DoorDash gave him for the delivery, and plus he got my tip. So that was kind of disconcerting. I was a little I wasn't too sure why they were doing that. Yeah, they were guaranteeing you were going to make so much, but if the person tipped, that was just less money they had to pay you. So in a lot of the other things that I do, usually tip is on top of everything that you normally would earn. So that was something that discouraged me a little bit, and I haven't driven much since then for them. I still plan on trying to do sometimes, but a lot of people around here that drive for them won't drive or won't even accept a DoorDash if they don't see that they're going to make $1 a mile as a guarantee at least. I've been hearing also, I'm on a lot of the other sites, and I hear that people are also doing similar things where they're not taking just anything and everything that comes through. Although there are people out there that'll take anything that comes through, and they'll drive it no matter what because they're trying to earn $1. And I don't say anything bad about those people. They're trying to make their money. And but for me personally, and I don't know how any of the rest of you, if you're doing anything like those deliveries, how you do it, I would like to hear back on that and hear your thoughts on that, whether via message through Anchor or through the podcast, or send me an email at info@imnylis.com, spelled Nylis. And then we can discuss it on future podcasts in the segment of gig economy. So we, as far as other gig type economy things, we'll discuss those in upcoming podcasts. But we're back to DoorDash. So DoorDash has been in the news too a little bit. I won't go into that too much. Everybody that cares about that has probably seen and heard different things that are being talked about. I take the stance of I have to live it. I have to see it. I have to feel it. I have to see what's going on for myself a little bit. I hear what's happening. I'll take that with a grain of salt, especially in today's media and how things are being presented to everybody. I'm suspicious of a lot. I gotta see it. Gotta see it happen. Have to see, if I see a video, I don't like video clips. I'd rather see the whole video clip, the whole thing, the whole segment, to make up my own mind. And a lot of times you don't get that. So when it comes to the information being put out there about DoorDash and some of the other firms and what they do and what they don't do and some of the things, like I said, I experimented myself with both sides of the house. I've done that with other gig economy type deliveries, whether it be people or food. So I've tried them out from both sides of the house to see how it works, to see just how from both sides, how it looks, how it works, to try to determine for myself and think for myself on exactly how some of this works. So anyway, I will get off the gig economy thing here, and we'll move on to one more segment before closing out this episode, and we'll move on to the next segment.
Every day, we have the ability and opportunity to create a more accepting world by actively coming together and living inclusively. Even small acts of inclusion can have a big impact and make others feel loved and accepted. Because most people don't see themselves as part of the problem, they don't recognize that they can be part of the solution. Before anything else, we're all human. Start a conversation and create a deeper connections. Consider whose voices are and are not represented. Use inclusive, appropriate, and respectful language. As my grandmother used to say, respect those, and they'll respect you. Learn how you can come together at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Well, let's dive right into this next segment that I like to call Society at a Whole. Yeah. So there's a lot in this segment that I would like to cover, and we will go over different things, kind of how things are playing out. Everybody sees how things happen in the media, and everybody talks about millennials, Generation Z. There is so many generations. I don't even know which generation I fall into. I was right at the tail end of the baby boomers, so I don't know if I still fall into that or I'm Generation X or not sure exactly where I fall into things, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of my feelings on society and how things are happening and what we're seeing. I feel very strongly about. I'll go straight into one topic, and that is how people are reacting to things, whether it be written, whether it be radio, whether it be news, whether it be whatever media that they're watching, and people are reacting to this. And some of the things that I've seen over my many years, I've been noticing how phrases, things start jumping in and people start using them, and the younger generation has theirs and the next younger generation has theirs. But a lot of times, generations that are using these terms or ideas that wasn't their generation. So they're trying to use this stuff and they're not sure how to use it. One of my favorite things that, we just didn't use in my generation, as far as I know, I don't remember anybody using it, was the term being triggered. Being triggered by something. I don't remember us really talking like that and using that. It would get someone riled up. That was the term. You got all riled up from something riled you up. And that's something that I guess when you take a look at all the things happening out there and people being on one side or the other, or someone being in the middle and getting caught in the middle of something, and someone getting upset about something that some people step back and go, wait a minute, that was just kind of small. Why would you get upset about that? And I don't understand how we as a society have really gone off the edge on both sides. I mean, I'm not playing favorites anywhere on this. I'm not playing favorites anywhere on there. So if someone, if someone gets upset about something, and everybody has a right to get upset. I mean, that's just, you just can get upset about something. But when you go off the deep end and start screaming and yelling and saying things that you truly want to say about this issue, and you are just spewing things that become hate. And I don't understand. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. I mean, when two neighbors, it brings me back to something. I try not to get too squirrel here and get off on a tangent. When someone's standing at their fence by their neighbor, and they're upset with their neighbor because they did something, and they're screaming and yelling back and forth across the fence. They can't see each other. They can just hear each other. And the fence is pretty high, and they're just yelling about, hey, you did this, and why'd you do this? And the other one's, oh, well, you did this, and going back and forth and not seeing each other. That reminds me of what's happening today. Because if you take a look at like social media and stuff like that, most people aren't seeing the other person that they're yelling at and typing nasty things back and forth, and not taking a second to step back and read what the other person said and think about what maybe there might be meaning from it or doing anything like that. It's just all instantaneous. Throw that hate right back at them, and they're such a bad person because they're doing something and saying something. But you're not taking the time to sit there and think about maybe what they're trying to say or trying to mean. Now, going back to the fence issue, if you sit there and take a look at someone that's having some kind of an argument or discussing something that happened, neighbors across a small 3.5 foot hurricane fence that's not very high, and they're talking to each other and discussing. Yes, they can get pretty boisterous and stuff like that, but it takes on a whole new dynamic. And you're seeing the person in their eyes, you're seeing their inflections, you're seeing their expressions. And so it takes on a whole nother level to where you can react to you end up reacting to those physical mannerisms that they're displaying and what they're doing. And sometimes you can calm that discussion down just because you realize that the person is upset about something. You feel that, the empathy kicks in. Not saying it always happens to everybody, and there are just the screaming and yelling, but I see the differences that happen. And that's like when someone in social media, then they're screaming and yelling at each other. If you take a look if you just sit back and you listen, try to say those words out loud that they're writing, and imagine what are they trying to say? What are they saying? And not just be, as the younger generation says, triggered immediately, and it just fires up that hate emotion in you. And you just fire back with all you got and say something short and terse and don't explain yourself and use those kind of words. This is where I think society has just gone off the rails, because we never used to communicate like this. And I know the new communication methods and everything, how it goes, that the communication goes, so much faster now, and it just happens instantaneously. I do not like texting people and talking to people. If I got something to say, I want to talk to them at least over the phone. So they hear my voice, they hear my inflections. I can listen to them. I can understand from there what they're saying a little bit. And I can also take a breath and deal and process what they're saying. And I just think society needs to try to process things a little bit and slow down a little bit and not be so instantaneous on everything. Yeah, okay, that's my take, folks, and on society and as a whole. So again, if you have any comments and would like to reach out and talk to me about anything I've said or talk about that stuff, I will, in future podcasts, I will bring up anything that people have brought up to me. Again, at info@IamNylis.com. Nylis spelled Nylis. So get to me, reach out to me, let me know what you think. We'll be taking off and doing the wrap-up segment here right after this. So this is our wrap-up segment. I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in and listened to my new podcast, I Am Nylis. And we will be continuing on with this. I don't think this is going to be a daily thing. This is more like a weekly, once to twice a week, depending on what happens out there that we need to discuss and talk about. If we get to the point where it needs to be more regular, I probably will be doing a Saturday, Sunday time frame on the podcast. So I would, again, like to thank everyone that tuned in and is listening. And if you have any ideas or any direction you'd like to see me talk about and discuss, again, you can reach me through Anchor, podcasts, or some of the other areas. Also, you can email me at info@IamNylis.com, Nylis spelled Nylis. And I, again, would like to thank everybody and get out there and do your gig economy and be safe and take care, folks.